Kayla Wilson had the best scoring debut in Summer League history. And because it is Summer League, yes, we have to keep perspective, and we're not going to crown anybody after one Summer League game, but Kayla Wilson just gave Bulls fans a glimpse of what he can be in the NBA, and it was a very promising glimpse with the 35 points, the 7 made threes, the defensive flashes, a chase down block, big shot making in regards to it, and the huge confidence that came with it. Now, in regards to it, it was not a perfect debut. The free throw shooting needs to be better and things like that. The turnovers were there, and we have things that we need to clean up. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about the Summer League debut of Kayla Wilson, Dailyn Swain, and the return to Summer League of Noa Essengue, and what we can expect of them in Summer League Game 2. We're going to talk about all that, plus dive into the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go into this content for today, y'all. And man, it's Summer League, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, but that doesn't mean you ignore what happened in Summer League either. Kayla Wilson dropped 35 points. He was 12 of 21 from the field, 7 of 11 from the three-point line as well. The shooting was the headline for him. This guy took a confident three to start off the game, and then throughout the game, we saw step-back threes. We saw off the catch threes. We saw a lot of one-dribble pull-ups. Like Kayla Wilson, and I love when after the game, when he was asked about his three-point shooting and the fact that he never took more than one three-point shot at Duke in any game, and he said, well, that wasn't part of our game plan. That wasn't how we played basketball. And I'm going to say this in regards to Kayla Wilson. Like, I'm not expecting him to come out and be a 60% three-point shooter. That would be ridiculous. But if Kayla Wilson has been working on his three-point shot, and let's say even more that the reps weren't there, right, in regards to that the reps just weren't there for him to really work. Like, he didn't get a lot of reps of three-point shooting. If Kayla Wilson can even be in his first year, I'm going to go low end. If he can be a 32 to 34% three-point shooter, which puts him right outside of league average and the 34% right around league average three-point shooting-wise, it completely changes not only how you have to guard Kayla Wilson in the NBA, but also changes the half-court offense for the Chicago Bulls. Up until this point, we've talked about the Bulls' half-court offense being a bit of a struggle with spacing because the only three-point shooter out there is Norman Powell, and Josh Giddey was a reliable three-point shooter as well, shooting at 38% on not crazy volume, but not bad volume either. If with Modest and Kayla Wilson, if they both round out to be like between 32 and 34% three-point shooters, which Modest has shown an ability to be even higher than that, we may have a lot more three-point shooting than what we give it credit for. Now, that's a big what if, right? And Summer League production is not NBA production, and I want to be clear in that. I get it. Everybody's excited, and everybody should be excited about it, right? He matched his entire UNC run, three-point makes in one Summer League game, and so, but it presents a very tantalizing, idea of that if Kayla Wilson is a more reliable three-point shooter in year one than we thought he was going to be, it changes the game quite a bit for Kayla Wilson. So we'll see, right? But it wasn't just about the offense. The offense and the 35 points is going to get, understandably so, a large part of the talk around Kayla Wilson, but it was also the defense, right? The chase down block showed the motor that he had. There are times in which he was switched onto Cedric Howard, and he forced Cedric Howard to give up his dribble. He did the same thing for Cam Boozer in some possessions. Didn't guard Cam Boozer as much as I would have liked to see, especially since we're kind of thinking Kayla Wilson is going to be a 4 at the next level. But I'll say this too. If the three-point shooting is a little bit more reliable, maybe you do play him at the 3 and leave Modest at the 4. I don't know, right? Like, we'll talk about all of that as it goes on, but he outplayed Cam Boozer overall. And, you're going to see some things from some people that are like, well, he had a plus minus of negative 11, and he had the turnovers. Then it's like, yeah, learn how plus minus works. He was on the court a lot, and he was on the court when, the Grizzlies went on a run there, and that's going to affect the plus minus, but that's not a direct indicator of what he outplayed Cam Boozer. Cam Boozer had, I think, only 2 less turnovers on about half the possessions, less than half the possessions than Caleb Wilson had. And, he didn't just score 35 points. He answered the loudest question about his game in an adamant way in his first chance to do it. So let's see how that's going to continue going for him, right? If Caleb Wilson's jumper is real, the ceiling for Caleb Wilson changes almost immediately. Period. It changes almost immediately. Now, it's a big what if. And Summer League basketball is not the same as NBA basketball. He's not going to take that many volume of threes more than likely as a rookie. But one could also say on the other side of that is that he didn't have a point guard out there. Dailyn Swain is not a point guard. We'll get on that more in a second. He's going to have either Josh Giddey or Trey Jones creating for him, which is going to put him in hopefully more advantageous situation shooting wise. So that's going to be that part of it. So, there's a lot of what you can talk about that. The percentage is not going to stay the same. He's not going to shoot that, right? And he doesn't need to be a 40% three-point shooter as a rookie. Like I said, if he's between 32 and 34%, and God forbid he's anywhere above that, he goes to the next level between 34 and 36% as a rookie, it changes the conversation a lot around who and what Caleb Wilson can be in the long run. The turnovers are a teaching point for him. Absolutely, right? He was special, but he wasn't perfect. The 6 turnovers just can't be ignored. But I would say this, like you guys know, I like to offer counterpoints to my own points. He's not going to be doing that much ball handling at the next level, right? Some came from him being off balance. Some came from him being aggressive and reckless in his movements at time. Some came from the team passing him the ball, trying to get him to bail them out with I think it was a couple of times where it was 0.8 seconds left on the clock. And it is. And I will say this, Cam Boozer also gave him issues at time. Poking the ball loose, getting a transition dunk there. And that's where the strength and development are going to matter a lot for Caleb Wilson. He's 19 years old. He's going to add muscle. This isn't the finished product that he's going to be, not nearly, right? And so the Bulls are going to want him to stay aggressive. You can clean up the game, right? You can clean that up as you refine, as you develop, those type of things. But you should absolutely want him to continue being aggressive in this game. And so when you're looking at Caleb Wilson, and I would say this, what he needs to do, what I really want to see from Caleb Wilson in game 2 to continue it is that, listen, win differently, right? You won your possessions as far as scoring the points that you did, right? I'm not expecting you to score 35 points again. I'm not expecting that. If you give us 20 to 25 with 6 to 8 rebounds, 2 to 4 assists, 2 stocks per game as well. And I would say this, keep the turnovers at 3 or fewer. If you can do that, it's going to be really big for you, right? I think the thing that's going to be important for Caleb Wilson is how he handles the scouting adjustment, right? Utah is going to try to run him off the three-point line now. The scouting report's out, so I wouldn't be surprised if they switch how they planned on guarding Caleb Wilson, and they're going to try to keep him off the three-point line. Now, some could say that that's going to play into his strengths because he's not necessarily a three-point shooter, right? That's not how he came into it. And so, that's going to be there. I think overall, the expectation for Caleb Wilson is don't chase another heater, right? Attack closeouts, get downhill, make the simple pass, just go out there and play your game. You don't have to live up to the 35 points. And what I loved about Caleb Wilson as well, that he said in the game, after the game, he said, listen, I would have liked to get the win. We didn't win. I came here to win, right? That shows a lot. After breaking a Summer League record, he said, hey, we didn't get the win. And he said, somebody else is going to break this record. There's going to be somebody that comes later and breaks this record. That just shows you the mindset that he has. I just want to see another good game from him. That's it. Caleb Wilson doesn't have to chase, doing what he did last night, but just continue to have a good game for sure. Let's switch it to Dailyn Swain. Dailyn Swain struggled, but it's not a reason for panic, right? He was put into a tough on-ball role, and he looked uncomfortable in that role. It's clear that he looked uncomfortable in that role. He finished the game with 7 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists on 3 of 10 shooting as well. And the Grizzlies were very aggressive with him defensively. They were basically guarding full court since from the opening tip-off. They guarded like that. And so he didn't get downhill, which is his game consistently. He started doing that a little bit more towards the end of the game. And his isolation attempts were definitely cut off, primarily because they played that full court pressure on him as well. So, and I think just overall, Dailyn Swain's playmaking is not sharp enough for somebody to be asked to initiate the offense in the half court. It just wasn't there for him. Jalen Sellers took over the creation duties later in the game. Then he went into business for himself. And it does not mean that Dailyn Swain is a bad pick. It just means that the role that they use him for is probably not the primary role for him. He's more of an off-ball wing, secondary attacker, defender, slasher, and isolation scorer. That is who Dailyn Swain was in college. He's not a full-time point guard, and it was always kind of weird trying to take a player that averaged, 3.4 assists and say that, oh, now you can be a point guard at the next level. That was always kind of weird, right? But Summer League is for testing players in uncomfortable roles. That's it. Game 2 should be more about, being visibly better and more comfortable and being more decisive for that. To me, in Game 2, Dailyn Swain needs to be a two-way pressure valve. That's who he needs to be in Game 2, right? Caleb Wilson is going to draw more attention. Swain should have more chances to attack tilted defenses because Caleb Wilson is going to put that pressure on it. And I think a good target for Dailyn Swain in Game 2 of Summer League is 10 to 14 points, 5 to 7 rebounds, 2 to 3 assists, 1 to 2 steals, and get to that open court like you like to do, right? Play more of your game, right? Swain wasn't drafted just to be an athlete. He averaged the 17.3 points at Texas, 7.4 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.6 steals, right? And his profile was built more around scoring, rebounding, and passing than it was about facilitating and setting up in the half court, right? I think that Game 2, hopefully the Bulls are going to look more to put him in a mindset of his actual skill set and to flesh that out a little bit more. I think put him in more actions where he can make decisions, but those decisions come from wing pick and rolls, those type of things. We don't have a real point guard on this Summer League roster, so I don't think you're ever going to see him kind of in the same role when he's playing off Trey Jones in that second unit. But I do think, watch that and watch the jumper. Dailyn Swain, I think he's a really good corner three-point shooter. He didn't really get any corner threes in that game because he was initiating at the top of the key. If they can try to get him more in those actions, I think that's going to be there for him. If he's more of a connector in that next game, I think it's going to work out a lot for Dailyn Swain. So look out for Dailyn Swain to be more of that kind of player in Game 2. And then Noa Essengue. Man, listen, I know that there are people who like to have hot takes about Noa Essengue. I've already seen the people like, he's P. Will 2.0. And to me, that shows you weren't actually paying attention in this game. Now, I will say, he started off the game very timid. And it was a little bit concerning for that. But then when you think about the fact he was off 8 months with a season-ending shoulder surgery, and you can kind of see as the game went on, his confidence started building, and it all culminated in a really solid and aggressive fourth quarter for him. He finished with 10 points, 5 rebounds, 4 blocks, 2 steals. I think that's really good. He 5 fouls I think he had as well. That's really good. That's a really good stat line for a player that you don't have a point guard. Noa Essengue doesn't create for himself. He lived, even last year in Summer League, he thrived off the Yuki Kawamura being able to create for him in the half court. He didn't really have that in this game, right? He looked better as the game went on, which I think is the point that stands out a lot. And the movement and the confidence kind of built as the game was on, which kind of tells me he got more confident. It seemed like to me that Noa Essengue got that first contact, right, when he really tried to be aggressive and get to the rim. And he's like, okay, shoulder's okay. It didn't hurt. And then he just kept being more and more aggressive as that went on. He attacked the rim. He got to the free throw line. He was 3 of 7 from the free throw line. You need better from that, especially with the way they do free throws now in Summer League. But his size, his mobility stood out defensively. He detoured a lot of shots at the rim as well. He moved his feet well on the perimeter. He showed that weak side rim protection that I think he's going to live off of as well. We didn't get it in transition as naturally as I would want. That goes back to not really having that point guard play where I think he's going to thrive at the next level. And I do think he's going to have to play that energy role for this team. And I want to see him be a little bit more decisive in the next game. But I do think Tiaso's usage of him is going to be really important to see how Tiago likes to use him and now what he takes from that first game. Overall, in Game 2 for Noa Essengue, I think the biggest things that you want to see is that, you want to see the energy, you want to see defense, you want to see rebounding, and just the simplicity of the game, right? One of the things that's different for Noa Essengue in this Summer League versus last Summer League, where we did see him have like a 21 point explosion in the Summer League game against Indiana. You also saw in the G League, he averaged 23 points and 8.5 rebounds over 4 games. We know that Noa Essengue can be explosive. So it's not about him necessarily needing to be the biggest explosive player in this second game in Summer League, but I do want to see some good two-way expectation from him. Good 8 to 12 points, 6 to 8 rebounds, 2 to 3 stocks, maybe 2 to 3 is a little bit too much, but 2 to 3 stocks, right? A few offensive rebounds, run the floor, keep the turnovers low, and do those type of things. As long as he runs the floor, crashes the glass, cuts behind defenders, I think that's a really good thing for him. Cut behind that weak side of the defense, get those easy buckets, get to the free throw line, how he switches on the defensive side of the ball. That's a big thing for Noa Essengue. That switchability for him, if he does that consistently, is going to be really good. You switch on the wings, how you switch on the forwards. Do we see a little bit more of you at the center, which we didn't see really at all yesterday, even though Tiago Splitter said that he wanted to see him a little bit of that. And then take the corner threes that are there. I think there's going to be a little bit more of that, especially if teams are trying to run Caleb Wilson off the three-point line, kind of how we expect after what he did in that first game, take that now, and what do you do next for that? I think that's going to be the big thing for Noa Essengue here. It's not about like competing for star touches or anything like that. It's just going in there, playing the simple game, doing the things that are playing to your strengths, use your size and your athleticism, push the issue, get to that free throw line, hit your free throw lines a little bit better in regards to that one. But it just comes down to him being that playable energy forward, I think comes for that in game 2 for Noa Essengue. He gave a lot of things that really, like, as the game went on, that you look at and say, you do this a little bit more consistently, you're going to have an even bigger game. That's going to happen for Noa Essengue. As long as he does that, I think those things are going to be perfectly fine for Noah. So that's what I'm looking at for Noah. I think we're going to be really good. He had a really good game, expectations in regards to that one. But yeah, this was a game where overall, I think everybody kind of flashed some of the things that you wanted to see from them. Of course, an amazingly strong game from Caleb Wilson. A better game as it went on from Noa Essengue. You got to see some of the things that you want to see from him. Dailyn Swain, you got some data for sure from Dailyn Swain on what kind of works for him, what probably doesn't work for him. I think that's fine in the long run for him as well. And just got to figure those things out as it goes on. I think that's the thing that you have to take away from that. And, we'll see what it ends up turning into for those guys. But, I am really excited to see what they continue to do in Summer League. And I would not be surprised. I want to go ahead and say this too. Would not be surprised at all if you see Caleb Wilson, if he has another big game like this, he may be shut down. Like, he may only play the games that Tiago Splitter coaches. Like, he could very well get shut down. And if that happens, maybe Dailyn Swain moves to his more natural role. And then we get to see a couple of games of Dailyn Swain really kind of doing his thing more so. So we'll see how it goes. Summer League is for that again. Take it all as it being under the guise of it being Summer League. Let's not take it as 1-for-1. And this means exactly how these guys are going to play at the next level, because I don't think that's what's going to happen here. But some really good basketball takes from it. And let's just continue to see how it develops. That's all I can really say in regards to that one. But all right, let's get into these voicemails, man. It is Saturday. It means it is voicemail bag day here. We got 5 voicemails to get into, man. This first one's from Jared.
Hey, what is up, Haize? This is your boy Jay Remy down here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just finished watching Locked On Bulls, so had to call back again because, you guys hit on some perfect things. I mean, Caleb was awesome. I mean, he did what we needed him to do. Obviously, it's Summer League, but, I mean, that's just, that. If it doesn't get you excited, I don't know what's wrong with you. But, Dailyn Swain, he's not playing his position. Hopefully it pushes him, but, you can't really put that all on him right now. I mean, it's a learning process, so he's not going to go out there and, dominate first time playing point guard. But, as far as Noah, I mean, I'm the Noah bandwagon guy, so, and Pat's been hard on Noah, but he hit it on the head. Like, I don't know what people think he's going to go out there and be like Wemby and hit 25, fucking points. No, I need Noah to run up and down, block some shots, get to the rim when needed, catch some lobs, and like you said, what he did in the Summer League was perfect for me. I know everybody sees the stat line and thinks, 10 points, he was a bust, but I mean, you're fucking retarded. I'm sorry. Excuse my language on that, but I have a lot of faith in Noah. He's been working hard. He did what we needed him to do. I mean, get the blocks, be there for the lobs. Like you guys said, he's not going to have that many damn shots. We're going to have Mattis and Caleb pushing each other. We're going to have Giddey, out there. It's just going to, I'm psyched. It's going to be exciting. So we got Nick. It's just a lot of fun pieces to see how it all develops. So, it's Summer League, so take it with what it is. But, thanks for taking my call and be red.
Very solid Summer League debut for Noah and Caleb. Well, more than a solid debut for Caleb Wilson. It was an amazing debut for Caleb Wilson. But Noah, he got better as the game went on, and I think that's a really important part, especially when how much time he missed with injuries. I think that's an important part to see from him. And now we just get to see how it continues, man. We just get to see how it continues, how it's going to develop, all that type of stuff. And I'm excited to see it for one. And I think a lot of Bulls fans are also, right? As far as, the other, as far as Dailyn Swain, I think that the data that we got is that Dailyn Swain's probably just not going to be a heavy on-ball creator as far as for others, right? He's more of a complimentary wing, those type of things. He's a connective passer. He's going to like to get downhill, those type of things. And, we'll see if as the Summer League goes on, if we see Dailyn Swain get to play more and more of his kind of natural game and play style, because that's the play style he's going to play at the next level. He's not going to play point guard because it's going to go to Trey. It's going to go to Josh Giddey. He's going to get to play off those guys and get kind of play his more natural role. But Summer League is for experimentation, and that's what they're using it for. But all right, let's get into this next one, man. This next one's from Country.
Hey, Haize, what's up, man? It's your boy Freeway calling from Louisiana. I just got a few questions for you. With the last roster spot that the Bulls have open, if it came down to one of the undrafted free agents, who would you sign if you had to pick someone for the last spot? And also, are you satisfied with the overall move that Graham and Tiago Splitter have with the Chicago Bulls? And if so, how do you feel about it? And then the last one is, if you was in the position of Bryson Graham, what moves would you have to make? Keep bringing the content, man. Love what you do, bro. See red, go Bulls. Peace.
I don't think any of the UDFAs get the last roster spot, and here's why. You can play guys on two-way contracts up to 65 games before you have to convert it to a full contract. If the Bulls are, which I kind of expect, I think a lot of people expect, leaving that last roster spot open for a lopsided trade if they need to take it, you would actually take away some of your flexibility by giving one of the roster spots to those guys while you can still play them in NBA games if you feel the need to anyway. So I think because of the flexibility part of it, you're not going to see any of the UDFAs fill that last roster spot personally. But again, I could be very wrong on that. They could see one of those guys. Maybe they have a huge summer league and training camp. They're like, oh no, we want this guy on the main roster. I just don't think it's likely at this point. And as far as like the offseason, I think Graham has played the offseason really well. I think you can see how all the moves this offseason play towards the vision that you expect Bryson Graham to have. And that's a lot more than we've been able to say about AK, for example. So I think that part of it's going to be perfectly fine. And we're just going to continue to take it from that and see what happens next, right? So I love what Bryson Graham has done this offseason as far as setting a tone in the table for the Bulls. And let's see what happens after that. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from the 945.
Yo, Haize, what up, bro? I done left a couple voice messages. You didn't, of course, reacted on all of them. Been here since day one. I'm sitting here thinking, so I've been listening, of course, to Central and, of course, Locked on Bulls and just bouncing back and forth. And then even watching some film, I know I'm late to the party as far as, my intensity, as far as research, as far as our draft pick. I kind of knew about Caleb Wilson, but not much about Swain. So as I started to look at him after we drafted him and talked about him, and then like looking at his approach, and then even listening to Coach Splitter saying about how he think he could be a guard and all of this stuff. I don't know. It's giving me like, and I'm not saying it to the caliber. Like, hear me out when I said I'm not saying it to the full extent of the caliber, but it's giving me poor man D Wade. Like the fact that he may be capable of playing point, shooting guard, and some small forward. The fact that he's able to control the ball, the fact that he's able to be a good defender and mostly on ball. The fact that he's good at one-on-one on offense. The fact that he's able, to get downhill, attack the defender, take it off the dribble. The fact that he's again good at finishing. Like a lot of stuff. And then even with his shooting, it's like, okay, we don't see him as a shooter. Like even when D Wade first came in, it's like, all right, we don't really see him as a shooter. But I wouldn't just leave him open, I wouldn't just let him have a shot, and especially with his mid-range, the fact that he's good at mid-range, and that's kind of how D Wade started. So it's like, I don't know, it's just giving me poor man D Wade, and again, I'm not saying it to the full extent of D Wade, and of course, we don't know what Swain gonna come out to be, that's for God to say, but I don't know, just looking at it and then listening and all that stuff, that's just what I'm getting, so I'm getting more excited about Swain. Of course, Wilson good, of course, Noah looking good, all that stuff, like the team looking good, but just zooming in on Swain is like, this is just what I'm seeing. But all right, bro.
Swain has a lot of potential. I think a lot of potential as an off-ball wing. I think that's what he's going to, and he's going to score on ball, right? He's going to be that isolation scorer. He's going to fit that mold of a let me go out and get you a bucket type guy. And that's how you're going to try to develop him, right? He just isn't a point guard, and that's fine. Like just because you're a solid positional passer doesn't mean you're a point guard, and it is what it is. I think those guys that can go out there and get you a bucket when it matters, you need those guys in the offense. You need those guys that if the offense kind of breaks down, all right, bet, I'm about to go into heavy isolation and get to the rim and get a bucket or get to the free throw line. I think that's the type of player that Dailyn Swain is going to turn into. And that's not to say that his three-point shot can't continue. Getting to those corner threes are going to be important and stuff like that. And we'll see, got better as a three-point shooter every year in college. And so there's no reason to think that that's going to stop now in the NBA either. All right, we'll see what type of player he's going to end up being. Let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from David.
Hey, it's David again from Golden, my man. First off, like to say, appreciate you putting my voice on one of your videos, man. It was so awesome being in that video and hearing my boys that you're responding to us. I really appreciate it. So it's been, exactly today, it's been 2 weeks since the NBA draft, and so I wanted just to let it sink in, what all the moves that happened, and obviously, Caleb, awesome pick. The Swain one, I did my research, like you always say, and I did do my research, so I like it. I'm still iffy about it. Something tells me, though, you tell me what you think, that this was a Thiago Splitter pick. Something tells me that it was a Thiago Splitter pick. I don't know if it's true or not. You think Thiago Splitter, being in Chicago now, affected that pick? Because to me, I had Sway going to the Lakers, which coincidentally, Cameron ended up going over there, which is obviously what every Bulls fan wanted with the 15th pick. But now he's here. He's a Bull, so I'm excited. Hopefully he proves everybody wrong. But like I said, something in the back of my head just keeps telling me that he was a Thiago Splitter pick. I don't know if he spoke with Bryson and put his input on it or not. I don't know. What you think about that? Thanks a lot, man. Love the show, man. Have a good one, man. Go Bulls.
I think that they looked at the upside of Dailyn Swain because I think Dailyn Swain fits the mold of a Bryson Graham type player as much as Caleb Wilson does. So I don't know if I'd say that it feels like a Thiago Splitter pick because Dailyn Swain still fits within the way that Bryson Graham likes to draft. And there is super high upside with Dailyn Swain. So I don't know if I wouldn't say, like, I get it. Like and I said it at the time. Once all the mocks had Cam Carr going to the Bulls, I'm like, he's not going to come. Like, it literally never happens that way for us. And while I was high on Cameron Carr, like a lot of people are, that doesn't mean that Dailyn Swain's a knock. And people that are reacting now because Cam Carr's having a hot summer league, so did Tony Snell, right? And listen, I still think that Dailyn, that Cameron Carr is going to be a perfectly fine pro. But that doesn't mean that Dailyn Swain isn't as well, like this whole thing. But they're always going to compare their careers. That's what Bulls fans do, and it is what it is. But like I said, I don't know if I agree that it was a Thiago Splitter pick because he still fits that mold of a Bryson Graham pick. All right, let's get into this last voicemail, man. This one's from Josh.
What's up, Haize? Josh here from Canada, buddy. Big fan of the show. Been listening for about not too long, but 3 months now. Just before the draft, got into it pretty heavy. I'm a Canadian basketball scout up here. Big fan of Leonard Miller. I think Leonard Miller got a raw deal in Minnesota. Got a wicked short leash over there. Didn't have much room to play. Came to the Bulls, showed out, double-digit scoring to end the season. 22 years old. Won't be 23 till like November of next year. So the start of next year, he'll be 23 years old. Still a young kid. Don't forget, like On Three, Jamie Shaw, and all those guys had Leonard Miller as the number one prospect in the nation in his class. I can't remember who else was in that class from the American side, but there's some good players in there. At the same time, too, I know you're not a big Rob Dillingham guy. You haven't really been a hater of him, but, I mean, that guy's a top 10 pick. Played at Kentucky for Calipari. Like, that kid's a player, man. Like, even if he'd come off the bench for 15 minutes a night, I think that guy's a good piece. And the last thing I'm going to say, man, guys, I love this show so much. Thanks for everything you're doing. I'm getting little, like, vibes of, like, the Josh Giddey and Norman Powell, man. I don't know if it's just me or maybe I'm just being I don't know, trying to make this happen. Josh Giddey and Norman Powell remind me of, like, the second coming of Kirk Heinrich and Ben Gordon. And I know that might be blasphemy to say, and they're not the same players, but the complexion comparison we got going here is undeniable. Norman Powell can shoot the hell of the ball. Ben Gordon can shoot the hell of the ball. Tough point guard. Kirk Heinrich, Josh Giddey. I don't know, man. I like what the Bulls are doing. I haven't been this excited since like Tyrus Thomas was here and Chris Duhon and those guys. But love the show, man. Thank you so much. Bonjour from up here in Canada. Keep doing what you're doing, Haize. Love the show. Thanks a lot, man. Take it easy.
That's a great pool. I think I remembered somebody bringing that up last year after we traded for him that Leonard Miller was the number 1 player in his high school class. And, sometimes that players are just late bloomers. Like we saw with Denny Advia, right? Like Denny Advia really blossomed year, 4 or 5, where he really started looking like, okay, hey, there's something here. And Leonard Miller didn't even make, and like you said, didn't have a lot of opportunities, those type of things. So, Leonard Miller is worth investing in. And that's one thing I always say. He showed enough now to where it's worth, I trust Leonard Miller to be a better player than Patrick Williams. I would trust that. So I think that's how you have to look at it. As far as Rob Dillingham, I'll say this. Rob Dillingham may be a perfect example of why college production isn't NBA production. Just because you were solid in high school and college does not mean that you're going to be a good pro. And Rob Dillingham's going to have to show if he can do that. I think we've seen a lot of players of Rob Dillingham's profile that just don't work out in the NBA because their speed doesn't, like, you're facing off against more length consistently than what you did in high school or in the college, and therefore that speed that he has been mitigated some. He's not getting that same spacing on his shot that he got. And so we're going to see what happens in that. As far as your comp, I love the Josh Giddey and Norman Powell backcourt as what it could be on paper, right? We got to see what it's going to be in reality. I don't know if I like the comp as much as you made with Kirk and Ben Gordon, but I do like what those guys can be as far as a backcourt, especially in the half-court offense. I think they're going to play off each other real well. They bring some legit size to the positions as well. So I think they're going to be a solid backcourt, but I don't know if I like that because BG was so much of a catch and shoot player, whereas Norman Powell can put the ball on the floor a little bit more, but also is perfectly fine doing catch and shoot. So we'll see how that develops for those guys also. But that's going to do it for today's episode, man. Make sure you guys sound off down below. Let me know how you feel on the Summer League from all 3 players, and Noa Essengue, Dailyn Swain, and Caleb Wilson, of course, and sound off on anything regarding to the Bulls down in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This